Hey everybody. Lo-fi beats. It sounds like Lo-fi Girl is in a good mood today. So that's cool. She's a little less lo-fi than usual, maybe. So happy New Year, everybody. It's 2023. 2022 is in the books, and my God, it was a crazy year. I hope everybody had a chance to have a little bit of downtime and just a chance to reflect. I did a fair amount of that myself, and it's always cool to just kind of think back on everything. And I'm not one to set like New Year's resolutions specifically every year, but I do think it's always cool to kind of like do some self-reflection, maybe set some goals. For the DAO, I think we're going to look back on 2022 as like a super difficult and super pivotal year that really helped us, solidify ourselves as a viable organization that's going to last well into the future and accomplish its goals. It was really nice to finish the year basically with that DAO retreat. I don't know about you guys, but I came out of that thing feeling more optimistic than ever. Not to say, yay, all our problems are solved. We have a lot of tough work to do, but so many smart people working on this thing makes me very optimistic. And it's also like a nice reminder, a nice antidote to all the doom and gloom on Twitter and prices suck and it's a bear market and people are fighting on Twitter, even CEOs of well-known companies. It's just a fucking shit sideshow. What we're building is the antidote to all these centralized problems which stem from a lack of transparency and at ShapeShift, and especially at doing or in the tokenomics work stream, transparency is our watchword. It's our guiding principle. So I just kind of laugh when I see that crap on Twitter. It's just a joke, man. It won't be long before things have turned around and when people can see the value prop of decentralization, the stuff we're embracing. That's my little soapbox for the day. Willie says, I love the latest tagline, the most trustless name in crypto. Is that our tagline? Did we just put that out there? That's awesome. Yeah, that really speaks to what we do. Great to see marketing team coming up with awesome new stuff in this new direction, and HPaint is its leader. Very cool. So yeah, in terms of our agenda, I wanted to start with a important schedule update. So starting next week, for the foreseeable future at least, the tokenomics office hours will be at 11 o'clock Mountain Time instead of 4 o'clock. The reason for this is I've had some contributors reach out wondering about an earlier start time. 4 o'clock is a bit of an outlier in terms of the DAO scheduling. When you look at most meetings, they're earlier in the day. It's a little bit alienating perhaps for people on the East Coast. That's 6 o'clock. That's into dinner time and family time. So kind of understandable why there might be a desire to see an earlier start time. It's midnight where Firebomb is. Man, that's dedication. You are hardcore, my friend. Midnight office hours for tokenomics. That's awesome. Thank you for staying up for it. Yeah, and it is, one thing I've thought about a lot over the years, I shouldn't say over the years, during my time here at the DAO is like, how to make it a global type of DAO when it's basically impossible to have meeting times that reach or that are acceptable for people in North and South America, Europe, and Asia. It's like a trilemma. You can kind of optimize for two of them, but you can't have all three. So, for better or for worse, we optimize for North and South America and somewhat Europe to the maybe the detriment of Asia, but yeah, DAO challenges. Another benefit of doing this is we've had the TMDC always at 3:30 on Thursdays, and frequently we'll be chatting and just have to truncate that conversation to start office hours. So that's a little bit better. 4 o'clock was never actually my idea. When I started the work stream, there was kind of a formative tokenomics work stream at the DAO, and that's kind of when the meeting always was, and I just kind of slid right into that. But I think this will be cool. Again, I hope I'm not making life more difficult for too many people, but with this change. But again, we'll see how this goes. There's nothing permanent about this change. And in any case, always appreciate everybody's participation and thoughts and attendance. It means a lot, just knowing that there's people to listen and echo feelings and make comments and think about this stuff alongside myself in tokenomics. We'll also be covering an important topic next Tuesday. I'll get to that shortly once we cover some of the context around it. But next Tuesday at 11 will be an important discussion that I want to bring to the entire community. So some fun shit's happening. I don't want to say fun necessarily, but some positive stuff is happening with respect to the runway. So I want to recap what happened late last year, just because after we had the DAO retreat and then it's the holidays and it's sort of like a bit of a black hole, as people are doing holiday stuff. But we kind of had a landmark moment with tokenomics and with the DAO finances where we finally put this Rari Pool 7 loan to rest. This was a long haul, an expensive haul. We had two loans at one point, Pool 79 and Pool 7. And we had used those a few times to pay payroll and back in the day. But these loans wind up costing us more than $4 million in debt service costs and, super high APRs. And it just been a constant sort of point of discussion, necessary discussion every single week in the TMDC. It's also, a lot of overhead in terms of getting the multi-sigs to send transactions to manage these. And of course, the majority of our stablecoin exposure that we got via these bond offerings was put directly towards paying down that interest and principal. So those loans are now nuked, and imminently the 80 million Fox that was in that's currently in the Pool 7 contract, that will imminently be in the DAO treasury. I think just a matter of getting that finalized, and thanks again to the multi-sigs for always helping out with this. But that's a big deal because that's 80 million Fox that we didn't have before. And crucially, it also eliminates any smart contract risk from having that in there. Other entities were hacked and did lose funds when Rari had an exploit in 2022. We were fortunate that we didn't, but I will certainly sleep better at night knowing that 80 million Fox is back in the DAO's hands. So that basically this has had a positive impact on the runway. No longer do we have to worry about paying any payments towards that loan. This was a separate column in the runway for quite a long time, and just factoring in the fact that we'd have to be making these payments. But it's gone now. There is no column for this, and that has a positive impact. It's just one less headwind the DAO faces. Additionally, on the governance front, I don't know if you guys saw over the past week or so, there was a proposal or two competing proposals. This is always interesting when it happens, but two competing proposals around what to do with the customer support work stream. One was to continue to fund it as a separate entity, albeit I think that amount was less than what was authorized by the community previously. And then the other approach was to weave it into ops in a way that doesn't impact the budget. The ops proposal won out, it looks like, by a pretty good margin, something like 75% to 25%. So as a result of that, I have eliminated the support line item from the monthly budget in the in the Runway. Let me actually post the Runway into the stage chat. And TLDR is basically following the elimination of that line item. We're looking at roughly 206,000 USDC per month of a spend, or $206,000 worth. This number may fluctuate. In fact, I can say with confidence it will fluctuate a little bit depending on how like the current workstream proposals pan out. There's going to be a little bit of maybe deviation from what's currently estimated, but basically we're in that ballpark. So that's a pretty big deal, because if you reflect back on where we were in May, our spend every month is more like $550K a month. So this is a significant reduction, and I think one that probably will be. I think this monthly spend figure is likely to last for the next several months, just knowing that new workstream proposals are getting approved, and knowing that there aren't any big changes on the horizon. For example, like nobody's proposing any new work streams as a line item. Another thing that dropped off in that final quarter was Foxchain. That was authorized to spend up to 300K from the DAO, and we kind of prorated that every month. And then KeepKey fell off as well. So yeah, we've seen some real changes to the structure of the DAO in terms of work streams and then the spend. But this is pretty significant, I think, because at this type of level, about a little over 200K, it becomes a lot more realistic to envision a self-sustaining DAO. And by that, I mean one where its monthly expenses are met or covered basically by maybe a combination of revenue, which has kind of taken a back seat during the bear market. But we do have sources of revenue, and there's been a lot of detailed work going into analyzing those and projections around those. PTT and Ocean have both create really cool spreadsheets around revenue and user acquisition. So, moving forward, the DAO will have revenue to help pay those expenses to some extent. And in addition, there are options for moving forward on additional stablecoin allocation. So, to be very simple, and I'm not proposing it at all that we would do this, but like, let's say hypothetically the DAO was going to accumulate an additional 200K of stables via bond offerings or something per month. If that were the case, and if that was viable over the long run, the DAO could just have a runway into perpetuity. That's an extreme example, and again, I'm not proposing we do that. But the point is, with this reduced spend, it's far more realistic to envision a scenario where the DAO is basically not eating too much into its runway every month. So excited to delve into that further. There was another positive development that you guys may have missed as kind of the year wound down, and that was that we had two long-term fixed-term, or I should say long-term fixed-rate bond offerings via Arbor and Hourglass. Thus far in Hourglass, there haven't been any counterparties on those, or maybe very small, de minimis. However, on Arbor, there were actually close to $100,000 worth of bonds that were issued. So that came into the DAO's treasury, and that actually allowed basically facilitated this payoff finally of the Rari Pool 7 loan. So That's done in a sense, that initial auction. However, moving forward, there may be opportunities to continue to offer those bond tokens. We were just debating that in the TMDC, discussing different options for moving forward. I think it sets a very interesting precedent too. The fact, and it's a good sign, the fact that there were that many counterparties willing to essentially take this offering reflects a certain amount of confidence in the DAO and its ability to kind of be basically sustain itself. I think it also hints towards perhaps in the future that the DAO could continue to use this tool successfully as a means to go about diversifying the treasury. So that was really cool to see. We'll keep you guys apprised on kind of how things play out. Like these tokens still exist that haven't been sold yet via those, that haven't been acquired by counterparties. So that's a important sort of thing to keep in mind moving forward. Let's see here. One other item is the bond protocol Fox to LUSD offering has essentially run out. The TMDC authorized a tranche of a certain amount of Fox over a certain amount of time for that offering, and that is now inactive. Or I should say, that ran out. So if you look at the DAO's treasury and you filter by ERC20, you'll notice that LUSD was coming into the treasury every day, but it hasn't happened after Christmas. The reason is that that has run out. So I'm going to end this discussion with a little bit more of a excursion into like why that's happening and kind of set the tone for the discussion on Tuesday. But first, I just wanted to refer everybody to the draft proposal for tokenomics in Q1 and Q2. Let me post that here. I got this sucker posted right before the TMDC call. So that is a metaphor now. I had a lot of time, like I said, to reflect and think over the holidays. I mean, honestly, I think I was feeling a little bit burned out after a crazy year, and then the intensity of the retreat, which is great, but there was definitely a few days of just being like, man, my brain is fried. But after that eased up, really had a chance to think about the work stream and the DAO and kind of, I think, goals and for next quarter, and also just reflecting a bit of a retro. So this proposal really encompasses all that thinking. Really, I won't read it like verbatim here, but just kind of covering some of the high-level topics here. So again, this is the scope and budget for the next 2 quarters of the work stream through June 30th. Of course, I do realize it's already after the first. If this proposal were to fail, then I am essentially, I guess, contributing in an uncompensated fashion, and that's certainly that's a risk I'm willing to take. If that happens, that's fine. But yes, so I start by looking at like the prior goals, and the number one clearly from last time was to preserve and extend the runway. Of course, I don't have the ability to unilaterally determine whether that happens, but I'd like to think I can help move the community in certain directions via well-reasoned arguments and data. And on that front, I think it was a success. So back in June, we had 10 and maybe closer to 11 months of runway, between 10 and 11, I think. Currently, we now have firmly 11 months of runway through November 23. So it's 6 months later, 6+ months later, yet we actually have a little bit more runway. And of course, at the same time, we've also eliminated those awful headwinds of the RARI loan. So I'll outline the reasons for that here. Of course, a major factor is the DAO-wide budget austerity work stream leaders had to make some super difficult decisions with respect to cutting contributors. And that has obviously had an impact on the runway, a lengthening and preserving impact, I should say. And then, of course, we also had the ongoing Olympus Pro, and then more recently the Bond Protocol program that allowed us to basically meet those costs of the RARI loan and eventually get that paid off. If it wasn't for those programs, we would have been in a much different position with respect to our runway. This retro also talks about some other tokenomics related things that happened. We had a bit of a scare with the Tribe liquidity as service wind down, where there was 15.3 million Fox in there, although it turned out just fine because they're offering a pro rata redemption of Fox instead of, like, say, one counterparty getting all that Fox at a discount and unloading it on the market. Things are, I think, looking generally positive with respect to that runway and that runway goal. As a reminder, in terms of scenario planning, that first tab in the runway is just our base case that reflects, quote, the worst case scenario where no additional stablecoin diversification is happening and no revenue is offsetting expenses. So one super interesting thing moving forward, and this is something that did not exist, say maybe when I wrote the last proposal in June, but we have some really well articulated sort of projections for what revenue might look like. The revenue and user acquisition spreadsheet that Ron maintains, or that PTT maintains, I think is a really cool effort towards that. Of course, these are just projections, but the whole point is the DAO will be earning some degree of revenue, and these can help offset expenses. So you can look forward to maybe some more granular modeling along those lines in the runway. I'll be digging into that as the year kicks off. As far as like smaller goals, DAO awareness was a piece there. Unfortunately, wasn't able to dig into that too much since the kind of the PR and the overall marketing work stream was a bit of turmoil and then flux during that time. This would be a cool one to come back to, though, now that the core team has solidified around marketing. There was also some thought last year about building on the additional existing dashboards. Darwin does such a great job of building these out and maintaining them. There are some paid visualization tools we talked about, but did not pursue those in this budget-conscious environment. But I think there might be ways to work on that moving ahead. In terms of the big picture, I kind of pulled out and just kind of talked about where things were when I started this role, kind of this crazy journey that we've had from being in full degen mode and into where we are now. I talked a little bit about what hasn't gone well. I think the RARI loan in general, in hindsight, that was not good for the DAO. We were able to meet payroll a few times, but if you would have told us that we wind up paying more than $4 million for debt service costs, probably wouldn't be a decision we would make. But hey, live and learn. We're here, we've survived this, and we're live and learn. We can take those lessons moving forward. One Fox in each vaults or Angel vaults, arguably were not a good fit. But at the same time, good learning experiences. Anyway, the whole idea there is, we're kind of, in a sense, we're making this shit up as we go along. There is no DAO playbook. We're writing the DAO playbook, and we're learning these lessons as we move forward. But at the most highest level, we are, I think in terms of the work stream, helping the DAO maintain its ability to function into the future via that runway. So moving forward for the first half of 23, I believe runway preservation continues to be the most important thing that tokenomics can work on. we now have proven tools, multiple proven tools to accomplish diversification into additional stables, whether it's Bond Protocol or Arbor. An important thing to keep in mind here, and this is where we start to get into the land of assumptions, but the planned Archeo airdrops for later this year could provide more value to the ShapeShift treasury. Presumably that token will acquire value, and ShapeShift will naturally get a lot of that in its treasury. That could be a potential boost to the runway. I do point out here that could is the operative word. I'm stressing that because this is a early stage project, and we don't want to count on any of this. On a similar note, and this is something we don't talk about a lot, and kind of for the same reason, because there's a lot of uncertainty around it, but it is something that will certainly be happening, I think, at some point in the future. That's the fact that there are currently crypto assets that are controlled by the Fox Foundation. That's at the moment, that's like 5.5 million of stables, and a good amount of Fox, about 20 million Fox, not $20 million worth of Fox, 20 million Fox. So the goal with the Fox Foundation, once the foundation can be dissolved and the DAO is sufficiently decentralized, the Fox Foundation is actually mandated to provide those funds to the DAO. So, if you were sort of a maybe an uber optimist slash like lackadaisical about risk, you could be like, shit, we don't have to worry about Runway because these funds are coming to the DAO. But there is no clear sense for when that distribution could take place. Thus, it would be a huge mistake to count on that distribution. In other words, given the current runway, if we were to eat through that runway, over the next 11 months, and then maybe that distribution is coming in a year after that, then we are essentially out of funds. Well, other than of course our Fox holdings. But I did want to bring that up because it's an important factor, I think, in the tokenomics of the future of the DAO. One thing I outlined here as a complete non-starter, at least in my opinion, in terms of ways to preserve the runway, is further budget austerity. Those difficult cuts were made last year, and these were not easy decisions on the part of the various workstream leaders. But I think they were pretty effective in terms of both lengthening the runway, and I think a lot of, arguably a lot of sort of wasteful spending maybe was eliminated from the DAO. But moving forward, the consensus among workstream leaders is that these leaner and meaner teams are certainly viable right now, their current size, but further cuts would be very detrimental. So really, additional budget austerity does not seem to be, at least on par with what happened before, is no longer an option. Not to say that there isn't sort of room for maybe selective and surgical cost optimizations here and there, finding ways to, save money in a bear market. Of course, further spending cuts would be unavoidable if the DAO is running out of funds, but that's a position we don't want to be in, hence the importance of preserving that runway. So in terms of additional goals, again, I see the general runway and finances around that as being the prime focus of the tokenomics workstream for the next half year. Additional goals, one actionable takeaway from the DAO retreat was for myself to continue to facilitate strategic discussions. We had a really good strategy session that included a SWOT analysis. So one actionable goal from that is just to continue that discussion and ensure that wasn't just a sort of an interesting chat, but one that maybe actually can drive some real action moving forward. And just really, basically, I want to do my part to ensure that we stay focused on those high-level elements. So with that in mind, we'll be having a strategy session for the DAO some point later this month. This will be separate from the tokenomics chat, but I'm happy to kind of continue to wave that flag and just keep people thinking about fun strategy stuff and keep that discussion active. Another one that I think I'm more convinced of than ever in terms of like this being I think a consistent goal in tokenomics is the research element, the Shapeshift Labs research element that I've done in the past, and of course this is kind of an extension of the R&D work I did at Shapeshift. It's there's certainly good overlap with tokenomics in terms of just you know, keeping an eye on new projects and trends that maybe the DAO and tools that the DAO could leverage. But beyond that, there's a you know, really important impact on our strategy potentially with respect to you know, how these things could inform our product or our product roadmap and those types of decisions. And that kind of planning. I'm not shy about being a Ethereum an Ethereum rollup specifically bull. I am by no means a maxi. I abhor maximalism, and I think there's room for many chains. However, I'm going to continue to sort of pursue this hypothesis that I think rollups will continue to garner or start garnering more liquidity and transactional throughput as we come out of this bearish period here relative to like alt L1s. The reason is rollups are have the potential to be more secure and more decentralized. But one takeaway I had at the retreat is that there continues to be kind of like a general lack of people really focused on this element at the DAO. And that makes sense because this is some pretty technical shit, and it's a little bit hard to get into. I think it's great if other contributors can think about this as well. In lieu of that, I'm happy to continue shining a light on where I think things are headed. We did a lot of that in 2022 with our frequent talks about rollups, different types of rollups, and we'll continue to do that. If things start to look different, I will shift my focus over to perhaps other chains. But I think right now, this is kind of what I'm seeing, and I'm gonna use that to inform my research. Oh, and lastly, guys, proto-dank sharding. Just look into it. Proto-dank sharding, EIP 4844 on Ethereum. It should be coming in like March or April. And this is a big deal because it's going to make rollups, I think, an order of magnitude cheaper. So this more than anything really makes me positive about rollups moving forward. It's an important protocol level upgrade that's happening. So that's a whole other rabbit hole. We can talk about that soon. In terms of the budgetary stuff, this is really unchanged in terms of workstream leader compensation. I will continue to request the same amount of Fox every month, 14K worth of Fox every month. Really, nothing has changed in terms of my conviction about the DAO. It's a little crazy sometimes. You know, it's a weird way to get compensated, but I also think it's the best way because I really believe in this. And more than ever, I think I'm positive about the DAO because we just have such a good team. And I think increasingly, you know, we're getting closer to having a product market fit and moving in the right direction. So no changes on that front. In terms of operating budget, so this is the one area where there is USDC involved. In Q3, Q4, the workstream spent a total of a little over 42,000 USDC. Most of that was spent on the Yieldies code bounty. Also, some of that was spent on adding contract limits, guardrails to Yieldies, and also code audits for Arbor and Hourglass. This calls for a one-time transfer of just under 18K, which would provide a operating budget of 20,000 for the next half year. Things like code audits and bounties. Another interesting use for those could include conference travel expenses. I may have a line on getting a speaking slot at a conference coming up here in 23, and that could be good use of those funds. So yeah, not too many changes on that front. And again, this is in terms of the regular salary. This continues to be a work stream that will not impact our stablecoin treasury. So finally, I conclude with a few important tokenomics related questions. I just want to, bring these up because this is kind of where I see the focus being on in the near term here. Question number one: what's the near term to intermediate term strategy for diversifying into stablecoins? And this is going to be actually our topic for next Tuesday at 11 o'clock Mountain. So now that the Rari loan is paid off, the kind of the understanding and the agreement with the TMDC is that we would kind of pause any further stablecoin or discounted bond offerings and sort of assess how to move forward. So there's a variety of opinions about whether the DAO should continue to issue discounted Fox via those means. Ocean has made a well-articulated case and a quantified case that these are unsustainable over the long run. We'll also be hearing from the bond protocol team, who claims to have some data to the contrary. They've been very helpful with everything along the way, and be glad to have them presenting their perspectives. So I kind of discussed broadly our options for moving forward in terms of stables, keeping in mind that there are more tools to go about this these days, like Arbor. But in any case, this is a very important thing, I think, for the whole community to deliberate on. Technically, the TMDC has purview to kind of decide how this happens, but this is a hotly debated sort of topic that comes up frequently. It wasn't quite as maybe prominent and maybe hotly debated at the retreat as the fee discussion was. The fee discussion was very interesting, but this is important, and it's so important that the community overall has a chance to weigh in with various thoughts around this, because again, the tokenomics workstream exists to serve the community and Fox holders. So we'll be digging into those topics, or that specific topic, next Tuesday. And then finally, I added this value accrual piece also, and it's a big one, and we do have some partial answers, I think, but I wanted to call it out because it's very much part and parcel of tokenomics, I think. And that's why would anybody want to own Fox? Specifically, how would ShapeShift success accrue back to Fox holders? What are the value accrual mechanisms? The long-term viability, of the token really rests on us getting these answers right. Of course, we do have some initial answers, like Foxy. That's a good way for that to happen. Archeo is another reason why somebody would want to actually own Fox, as it gives them exposure to that airdrop, at least until the airdrop happens. And then of course there's this bigger fee discussion, and of course the fee discussion is a different rabbit hole. I didn't want to trigger a whole fee discussion in this post, but it is sort of I think this stuff is very important from a tokenomics perspective, because at the end of the day there needs to be a reason to hold Fox. Maybe it's also something as simple as perhaps it's the notion that someday the DAO turns on fees like Uniswap, and that's why people want Uniswap. But in any case, Fox needs to have value for holders for it to be a viable token, and that's an important thing to keep in mind moving forward. And it also overlaps with that strategic focus piece that I outlined. GK. So you can vote for it. So that's the governance token approach is certainly that is arguably useful, and you could say that's enough. Is the DAO does that give you the ability to vote on important stuff? And Foxy, of course, is super important. Yeah, adding more utility is always good. So yeah, that is my proposal. As always, I have my boilerplate here about drawbacks, which is simply, this is really unchanged, but there doesn't hypothetically need to be a tokenomics workstream. I don't actually need to be here talking and taking Fox every month. Meaningful work could still get done. The TMDC is not a subset of tokenomics. It could still function. There could still be ways for contributors to collaborate. Or perhaps you disagree with my own approach to all this, and you would like to see, say, somebody else in that position. If that's the case, then certainly give this one a no vote. I would argue that we do good work as a work stream, and we should continue into the next half year. But ultimately, this is up to the community. Willie says, I think we have good core utility with governance and Foxy, mainly just need to generate more revenue so we can buy back more Fox and accrue more value to Foxy. Yeah, that is a good perspective for sure. And then this is all against the backdrop of the fee discussion. There's a proposal right now in ideation that was I guess it's in ideation with that's around the Thorchain fees. So yeah, my sense is that there's a lot of interesting things we can do. And again, this shit is so new. 2022 is just kind of when we were finding our feet, and at the same time we had to go through this brutal bear market and austerity. I think people were feeling like maybe scared and fearful frequently in 2022. I hope, and maybe this is one important aspect of the runway is like kind of easing any of those fears. Like, we, at least for the near term, we are able to continue to pursue our goals here and build out on this product roadmap and try to find a product market fit. So yes, that is that's kind of the proposal. Give it a look if you're interested. Does anybody have any thoughts or questions about all this? This has been one of those tokenomics where I just talk the whole time. Thank you for listening to me. Again, next week, I think this will be a good discussion around the discounted bond piece. Just know that and this actually, I think this is kind of an understanding that came out of the TMDC call we just had. These aren't decisions that the DAO needs to rush towards. This isn't like something that there's a need to decide on immediately. The status quo as of right now is that we have this 11 months of runway. At the same time, there isn't any active stablecoin allocation happening. If you are looking to assess whether the absence of those bonds, those discounted bonds hitting the market, is having an impact on the price of Fox, namely like the relative strength versus ETH, which I think is the best sort of measure of that. It might be a little bit early to tell because the bond offering ended on the 25th of December, and it's a 3-week vesting. Perhaps maybe you'd start to see some of that now, depending on people's ARB strategies. But yeah, we were not really seeing, or it would be too early to really make any assessment of that. Those are, but those are certainly interesting pieces to have for the discussion here. I do want to mention though that the point of tokenomics and its kind of overall goal does not and has never directly been related to the price of Fox. There is no sitting around and thinking, oh, how can we make the price of Fox go up? This is something that will happen over the long run as a result of the DAO building a good product and articulating clear reasons why value should accrue to Fox holders. But concerns over short-term price is not something that really falls under the scope of this. And I've always articulated that. That said, I certainly understand there is perspectives about like the desirability of the bond offerings and the impact on price. But yeah, but we got to zoom out here and think about the long term, and the price over the long run will take care of itself. So I guess that's it, guys. Thanks for listening. I'll talk about this proposal again on Thursday for the governance chat. And yeah, I hope to see you guys next Tuesday at 11. One result of this is you might get a slightly different Kent, because like my energy, I don't know about you guys, but like my energy is different. Like I have the most energy earlier in the morning and up until about lunchtime. After lunch, my energy falls off a cliff. I usually take a bit of a cat nap and then bounce back for afternoon and evening. But I feel like I'm always a little bit more mellow in the afternoon. So maybe, yeah, maybe the energy will be different for next week. So thanks, and thanks Firebomb again for listening in the middle of the night. I had no idea this whole time that you were checking in from somewhere where it's midnight. That's awesome. Anyway, as always, guys, it's an honor to be working alongside you and doing this crazy tokenomics stuff. I'm really excited for a adventurous and successful 2023. So everybody have a great morning or evening or night, wherever you are, and I'll talk to you soon.